Welcome to Building a New Dream, the third in a series of 12-part podcasts by the Grand Council, brought to you by Ancient Future Today.
And so we come to speak and to meet and greet with all of you who are interested in how, or perhaps just in the activity without the house, to build a new dream for yourself, with others, for the planet, for whatever it is that you are able to wrap yourself and your consciousness around as a context and as a breadth of activity and of responsibility and of awareness. For indeed, some of you will never be able to give up your independence in the sense that you would never disadvantage yourself for another, nor would you give up what you have in order to equalize things with 5 other families that had 1/5 of what you have or 1/6 of what you have. Many of you would not choose to do that sort of thing. And we don't even advocate that. We believe that there is more than enough already on your planet for everyone. It is a question of distribution. It is a question of people thinking they need more than they do. It is the question of acquisition over consciousness. And it is also just laziness for the part of many people that they are not able to be collective in their activities and communal in their consciousness. And so perhaps for those people who can do some of it, collaboration is where they will find their contribution in a new dream to be their strong suit. Now, that does not necessarily mean what we have just described is the only way that one would come to a collaborative sort of relationship or consciousness or responsibility. No, there are those who will do all of it, some of it, none of it, and all can and will and do collaborate in some way, shape, or form in a given lifetime. In a new dream, one that is good for every sentient being on planet Earth, there will necessarily be collaborative efforts going on far more often and to much deeper degrees and broader spectra than what has gone on so far. Why? Well, because none of you can do it alone any longer. There has been a shift in the energetics of your planet that suggests that whilst individual effort can and will still continue even in a new dream, it must be connected somehow with a larger context in order for it to be sustainable and successful and meaningful, both for the generator of that endeavor as well as for others involved. And that is what we would focus on in collaboration for all of you thinking about this and going forward. Would be what makes a collaboration worth it? Is it meaning? Is it return on investment? Is it pleasure while you're doing it? Is it seeing something come from nothing and not being the only one who can see it because you've involved yourself with others? Is it that humanity is really wired to be collaborative, to be collective, and to be communal? And it is only your modern lifestyle in industrial nations that suggests something else, where you each live in your own homes or flats or parts of a building or under a building or wherever you may live, and that you're scraping by on your own with your very few other contacts. That is not necessarily, we are speaking, of course, in rather extreme terms. Not everyone lives like that. There are people who are generous and involved with, and their lifestyles are intertwined with their neighbors. And yet, if you turn the clock back, let's just pick the United States for one example. You turn the clock back to the 1950s, post-World War II, people were far more open and far more active in collaborating with their neighbors. Someone did not have a lawnmower, for example, in a suburban area with grass lawns. It was no big deal to loan your lawnmower to your neighbor, or to take them a welcome casserole when they moved in, or to help them move if they were moving in or out. Those sorts of things happened regularly in suburban neighborhoods, and in the urban neighborhoods where people were living in even more close densities, there was even more exchange of help and feeding and having meals together, and all sorts of communal activities and collaborative activities that occurred just not that long ago in the United States. Now, in Europe, that still occurs because there are many families that have been generational and have not moved very far from each other. And while they may still have their bickering and their fights and their preferences and all of that, they still will help each other when push comes to shove in most cases. There has been a move away from collaboration, communal and collective sorts of consciousness over the decades worldwide, including even in those cultures where mere survival depends on it. There have been many of the young people moving away from their tribes or their indigenous nations or their hometowns or whatever, not having any intention of ever returning and living again in close proximity to those to whom they are blood related. So there are new openings now in consciousness for everyone to understand that you are all family, you are all one, you are all dependent on the other, what he or she or they do or do not do for your own very real survival. It is always something that we marvel at when those of you who live in nations where you drive cars a lot on streets and highways and back roads, where there is this given assumption that both of you will stay in your own lane and you will not consciously do anything to consciously crash together. That is just, if you think about how many moments of those agreements being honored by the way that most drivers behave, it is stunning to imagine how, if you could agree that often and over that period of time, as often as it occurs worldwide, to clean up the oceans, it would be a done deal. To clean up all sorts of social ills, they would no longer be something of the human condition. They would be, that's what used to happen, this is now. So we know you can do it. It does take a certain sort of self-generated, inspired action, inspiration to do something other than what you are usually doing. It does take certain examples or role models of people who are thriving and helping and collaborating. It does take you standing in your mastery, whomever you be, with whatever it is that you have co-created as your resource base, for you to be able to collaborate, for you to be able to be communal in your consciousness and to take collective actions for the good of all. So these things are very different in the ways, if you look at them, the last 3 podcasts, this and the first and second that we have done just 2 weeks before now. And we would suggest that you think for yourself, how am I collective? Do I honestly believe that I am one part of the human family? If I do not, then I'll just carry on and do what I do think. If I do, or if I could do, how would I behave differently if I were really willing to be communal with resources and behaviors and consciousness? And what collaborative activities do I know I could engage in that would actually make a positive difference for a very large number of sentient beings and the planet? myself included, of course. Big questions. A new dream requires good questions, new questions, big questions, brave questions, out of the box questions. And if you think you can answer them all because you're so smart and you're such an independent thinker, think again. Because, of course, you can answer them. And you will not come up with the sort of robust new thinking that you will if you do it together with others. This is what we urge with these 3 podcasts. Build this, whatever a new dream is, for those of you who know that you are one, as in one from divinity in human form. Those of you who know that every human being is a master on a masterful journey, find people like that with whom you can be collectively, communally, collaborative. And do new things. Dream new dreams and bring new things into manifest form with those new dreams. And until we have the pleasure and the honor, we leave you with these thoughts and our blessings. And for now, adieu.
Thank you for listening. Please join us for future podcasts on this same channel.